I think it's just going to go live in just a second. Let me see what's going on here. I'll let you
Do you
know.
use Restream or what do you use?
Yeah, restream.
Oh, it's terrible. They're all bad.
Well, it's a lot of it's, I just don't, I'm not proficient in doing this, right? I'm like watching YouTube videos to figure out how to make this work. And
So you got to take the stream key and plug it into Zoom on the back end. It opens up like a page sometimes, and then you got to enter in the URL. Like you can just make up a URL, but you got to put like a,
oh, wait,
let me
we're
go.
live. We're live.
Oh, there we are.
All right. Well,
Um,
welcome, Dr. Tro. It's great to see you again.
it's
And
nice to see you
thanks.
too.
It's an emergency meeting here because we've got the holidays, and I'm a little stressed about how I'm going to handle sticking with my carnivore diet tomorrow. And you were the first person that I thought of because I know you personally have experienced the wonders of the carnivore diet. And I think let's just start there. And can you tell everybody your personal experience and how much weight you lost, et cetera?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I just want to say this. I don't know, New York, we curse, but we fucking love you here in New York. Let me just tell you. Okay, we love you. We love the medical freedom movement. We have a lot of colleagues I think that we both know who are heroes in the space. I consider you a hero in this space. So before we start and talking about carnivore and how you're going to lose weight and how you're going to keep it off and how to feed your family, make sure they're healthy, I just want to first and foremost say that having courage gives all the rest of us courage. And you doing what you've done and enduring what you've gone through, I think really deserves huge commendation. So I just want to start out by saying you're a rock star. We love you. We appreciate you. And there's a lot of silent people in the background, just who come to me and say how much they appreciate people like you and I being vocal about the truth. So I just have to start out with gratitude.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, let me tell you about me. Okay. Where to start? 8 years old. I remember I was 8 years old. You want to go? We'll go way back. Okay. So I tell a lot of stories, so you're gonna have to interrupt me, Mary. I'm just, that's fine. In New York, that's sensible. Um, 8 years old, I was a chubby little kid, right? Came from a big family. Every single person in my family, was overweight. My brother ended up making it to 500 pounds, the other brother 400 pounds. I was
Wow.
350 pounds. Mom was overweight, dad was overweight, uncles, aunts, all of them. And when I was 8 years old, it was the first time I went to Weight Watchers with my mom. I went to Weight Watchers with my mom, and she taught me how to count calories at a very young age. I remember her, you may remember this. She would be up. I remember her as a kid. She'd be up at 3 a.m. knitting because her doctor put her on fen-phen and told her to count calories. That was, back in the 80s. I don't know, for the listener, fen-phen was a stimulant, sort of dual action drug in the 80s given to lose weight. She ended up, when I was 13, I was the weight I am right now, which is about 210 pounds when I was 13 years old. And, I eventually ballooned up to a 350 pound doctor. I was trained in internal medicine. I was a chief resident, and I had ballooned up to 350 pounds. Mary, every day hurt. Every day I woke up, it hurt to go up the stairs. It would hurt to get out of bed. I couldn't run after my kids. Every joint hurt. I was always tired, brain fog. I felt like I was in prison. And I was trained by the best and the brightest. I went to a Yale internal medicine program. I was a chief resident there. I scored on the 90th percentile on my board exam. I mean, it wasn't, I knew medicine, but they didn't really give me insight into nutrition. And certainly I didn't have that common sense knowledge about nutrition that some people just have. I didn't have that. My family came here with nothing. They had to get their education later in adulthood, and we really, it was like a first generation American struggle. So my wife, my amazing wife, we had two kids, and she was pregnant with our third, and this is like over a decade ago. And she said to me, "Are you going to make it? Are you going to make it to see our kids grow up?" And she goes, "I know it's not for lack of intellect." And she said, "I know it's not for a lack of discipline. I see you working." She goes, "I know you can do this. Can you figure it out?" And that's when I turned my arrogance. I had a New York City chip on my shoulder back then. I had a bit of arrogance that I think you and I are familiar with. A lot of our colleagues have that, arrogance. A lot of doctors have that arrogance. And for the first time, I really put it inwards and said, I got to drop the show. I got to change my life. I got to figure out, I got to admit that I don't know it. I don't know everything. And that was where my journey started. And, I peeled into the medical literature, and I read everything. I mean, Mary, I would like read everything. I went back to the 1900s, starting with it went from O's all the way to now. Gene Mayer in the 50s, writing in the New England Journal of Medicine about what controls hunger. What is it that drives appetite? What drives people to eat? Read all the theories about obesity, and then it's staring at you plain in the face every direct interventional trial ever for weight loss that compares low fat or calorie counting to low carb. Low carb does better. So that's where my journey started. It was 10 years ago when I said, let me actually not believe the food pyramid. Let me not believe what the CDC and the AMA and the AAP and the APA, what they say to eat. Let me actually look this up for myself, evaluate the data, and see where I get. And that's where it all changed. It was all lies. So yeah,
How long?
I was 350 pounds. I was 10. It took me 2 years, and I lost 150 pounds.
Wow.
You know,
How old were you when the light
yes,
hit?
yeah, this was 10 years ago. So maybe I was like in my early 30s, early
Wow.
30s, maybe 11 years ago. Yeah, I mean, 30 years of obesity, right?
Wow.
like 3 decades. And let me tell you, the mental clarity change was the biggest eye opener. I finally could think. As a doctor, I went from, like being a good doctor to like really, really digging down deep and understanding, paying attention, observing my patients, figuring out what's helping them, what's not helping them. I mean, my brain just changed. I don't even know how to say it. I started thinking clearly, no brain fog, a lot of energy. And back then, I'm starting to see this in my clinic, like, oh my God, I'm eating meat. I had never cooked a steak. Get this. I mean, you're from Texas, so or you're living in Texas, but I had never cooked a steak in my life at that point, not even
Wow.
once, right? And now all
And
I eat is steaks.
were you under the impression that steaks were unhealthy? Is that why? Or you just didn't have any interest?
No, it wasn't that I was convinced. It was certainly we were taught red meat is unhealthy, right? Like that's what we were taught. I mean, we both know now that flies, but Um, I don't think it was particularly because of that. Like it wasn't something I did. We had chicken, we had every once in a while we do kebabs, but really it was like chicken, grill, we would have a salad with grilled chicken, maybe some egg whites, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
skim milk,
Lean.
cereal, brown rice, granola bars, raisin bran, bran muffins. Like this is what I thought was healthy because, gosh, they said fiber and whole grains was healthy, right? And I had to just control my intake of it. Now I know the truth, which is all of those foods high in processed carbs and sugar, they literally get you hooked.
Well, and then were you very consistent that 2 years, or did you sort of fall off the wagon here and there and have to get back on, or how hard was it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have never deviated, not once,
Wow. That's
right?
impressive.
Like I can't, I can tell you I've had, it's just going to sound crazy to the average listener here. Um, I eat predominantly like meat, fish, chicken, eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, green leafy vegetables I'll eat like as a garnish, basically. Berries is like a dessert for me.
Hmm.
Um, I can't remember the last banana I ate. It must be at least 5 years since I've eaten a banana, let's just say.
Yeah.
Ice cream, I don't remember the last ice cream I had. I don't remember the last pizza I've had. I don't remember. I haven't had a beer like a in 10 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So for me, it's been strict, but I think I know what the second realization I came to, and it answers your question. Um, so the first layer was, holy crap, they've lied to me. I'm a medical doctor and I was tricked, right? I was basically tricked to believe this food pyramid, which is nonsense, right? And the truth is, the human health is largely improved by including meat and including fish and all the foods I just named. So that was the first like big realization. Low carb diets always do better for weight loss, right? And that transformed my life and it's transformed my practice. I mean, I've helped over 2,000 patients lose over 100,000 pounds, which I'm so
Wow.
proud about. So this is, nationwide medical practice. But the second thing that I really opened my eyes was about 2 years into my journey. I'm now like just over 200 pounds and reclaim my health. I'm running. I feel great. And I met a patient, and you'll appreciate this because as a clinician, we often screen for issues like when we're just sitting there with our patients, and we may screen for depression, we may screen for anxiety, and in this particular patient who I was really fond of, I was screening for alcohol. And this is the light bulb moment, the second light bulb for me, which was a concept that was really not even widely discussed back then, which is food addiction. But the questionnaire I did was called the CAGE questionnaire. And you probably remember from residency and med school, the CAGE questionnaire is for alcohol. It stands for cutting, agitated, guilty, and eye opener. Do you want to cut down? Do you get agitated when somebody tells you to cut down? Do you feel guilty about your use or shameful about your use? And do you feel so compelled to drink that you drink at an early hour, or maybe you hide and sneak bottles, or maybe you lose control like late at night alone or something like that? So these four questions I'm asking, my patient that I care about because I want to help him understand his relationship with alcohol. And in my head, I was answering it for food, Mary, and I was like, holy crap. Yeah, I do want to cut down on unhealthy food. My whole life I wanted to cut down. Oh my God, when my wife says when I was 350 pounds and desperate to get healthy, and she said, maybe you shouldn't eat that pizza, I would get agitated and annoyed and pissed off. And I'd say, leave me alone. And gosh, I had so much guilt and shame about my weight, my size, how I was eating, how come I couldn't control, what was going on. And I can't tell you, after a code in the ICU, code blue, I mean, I would be looking at anything in the nurse's station to just throw into my mouth. It could be whatever was there. And it's never healthy at the nurse's station.
All right.
So when I did that questionnaire on this patient, I realized that, there's more to food than just low carb or intermittent fasting or carnivore, or that some people like me could be, food addiction is a tough word, but something pretty darn close to addiction. And that describes my whole life. You were saying going on and off the wagon. I mean, we use those terms for addictions.
Hmm.
So that was my second realization. And I've published on that too, on food addiction. It's something that I feel more doctors need to be aware of. Like, how is it that we've gained 50 pounds, right, in 5 decades as a people? How is it that our kids are chowing down on Cheetos and drinking down sodas and they can't stop and it's in the schools. They're getting They're getting fatty liver before the age of 18. They're getting diabetes before the age of 15. How is this not food addiction?
Right.
Right? How are we not hooking these, I was hooked at a young age,
Right.
right? And I had to like unhook myself. So yeah, I've never fallen off the wagon, if that's what you mean. God has been good to me.
So, well, and then how do you tackle the food addiction part other than just bringing awareness to it? Are there tricks to that?
Yeah, I think it's just starting to like understand, like, we kind of understand it with alcohol, right? Like an alcoholic, they have to come to that moment, right? And be honest with themselves. But once that happens, they have to do something about it. They got to go to AA, they got to abstain, they have to, everybody, they got to rally their family and get support from their whole family. They got to do something. And same thing with opioids, right? Like if you have opioids, everybody like they're not even going to leave a bottle in the medicine cabinet if you come over because, like they want to, that your family wants to support you and your friends want to support you. But with food, I mean, it's the opposite. Like the minute we all get together tomorrow and we go out to Thanksgiving, they're going to say, well, I made this apple pie just for you. You're not going to taste some, Mary? Like, I made
Right,
this
right,
pecan pie. Like, you're not going to have a little bit? What about this gravy and mashed potatoes? Like, you're really not going to taste it? So I think, awareness is a big key because nobody's coming to help you.
right,
Nobody, not your
right.
family, and it's not that they don't love you, and it's just as a society, this is how we show love. This is how we come together. We're a tribal, communal people where we come together over dinner and holidays. So don't expect to get support. And then people need to know that. I mean, you can find support from doctors and health coaches and nutritionists and trainers, but you really have to be a strong self advocate. So when you tomorrow, when you go into that, your family's house or your house or wherever your ski lodge, wherever you're at, make sure you have, available for you what you need to stay on your journey. So like, I'll give you a quick example. If I know I'm going to my vegan uncle's house for Thanksgiving, I'm eating a ribeye before I go. I'm not, I'm eating before I go because I'm not going to get there, be hungry, stare at the wheat thins on the counter, stare at the popcorn and chips and all that stuff on the counter. I don't want to be hungry when I know I'm in a malicious food environment, right? So that's one thing, right? And like the next thing you can do, with that, when you know you're an addict is okay, so you're preparing, you're like, you have a plan ahead of time, right? Like of what you're going to do in these vulnerable situations. The other thing you do is like you have a plan for what you're going to do when you're there, right? Like I bring with me for dessert. Nobody struggles at Thanksgiving because there's turkey, there's ham, right? There's meat, right, on the table. Nobody struggles with that. Sometimes you got to address the sides, but like for the most part, people can eat protein. It's the desserts that really get them,
Hmm.
right? Maybe you'll nibble on some stuffing, but most people could say no to stuffing. But it's like you ate and then, they leave everything out on the counter, right? And maybe like you just got to know to go back to the protein if you do go back to that table. But then the dessert comes out, and I think that's where people struggle. So I just bring my own dessert. Like I'll cut up berries, I'll bring like, heavy whipping cream and I'll whip it up there. And, people eat my dessert, right? Like if I
Hmm.
really want dessert, and I rarely eat dessert, right? It'll be like berries or some sort of my wife also makes like almond flour based desserts if I really wanted it, but I try to stay away from those. But yeah, when you're an addict, I think you look to abstain, but with food, you can't abstain. You can't just say, well, I'm not eating forever. So you have to learn to live with this, which is different than any other addiction. So yeah, awareness and a bit of understanding.
Well, and do you still crave sugar? Because that was hard for me the first month. And I'm curious about your thoughts on sugar substitutes to get over that. Is it okay, or should you just go cold turkey and just suppress those sweet cravings completely?
Yeah, I think the ideal I think is always, stick to something as close to real whole food, right? Like the ideal should be, can you get away with meat, fish, chicken, eggs, Greek yogurt, plus or minus green leafy vegetables, plus or minus berries, right? Like somewhere between paleo and carnivore. Hold on one sec.
All right. Dr. Tro had to leave. I will just tell you one little trick. Oh, there you are. I
Yeah,
was going to,
sorry. No, you
I'll
tell the
say,
trick. Go ahead.
I was going to tell one little trick. I don't do this anymore, but yeah, I used to eat ice cream every night. And so to kick that habit, in the early days of carnivore, I would pour heavy cream over ice, and then I would just put a dash of sugar-free muscle milk on it just to give it a little flavor and drink it every night before bed. And I was just shocked that I was losing weight while doing that.
I think that's a great, I think Greek yogurt and a little bit of sweetener works. You could take even, like cottage cheese and mix in a bit of protein powder or whatever, there's a lot of, most people struggle with that sweet craving. And, I use the harm reduction strategy. It's like harm reduction or abstinence. Some people, if you know you're a moderator or if you know you're an abstainer, pick your path. If you're a harm reducer, which I did, I was doing Greek yogurt and packets of sweetener, right? That was instead of the ice cream. I was doing, meat pizza instead of pizza, right? I would put meat, I would put a little bit of sauce, I would put the pizza seasoning, and I would put some melted cheese over it, and I would have meat pizza every time I had a pizza craving. When I went to my daughter's, and my youngest son's birthday parties, and we went to birthday parties for the kids, I would bring a birthday cake protein bar. Do I think a birthday cake protein bar is healthy? No. I mean, I have no love for Quest, like particular love for Quest, but that's what I used, right? I mean, it was enough for me to, like once in a while, if I was caving under pressure, instead of having like the birthday cake with 5,000 ingredients, I had a milk protein based protein bar. So I think, everybody has to be the judge of themselves on what they're going to do. I think most people do well just doing what you did and what I did for a couple of months, and then trying to go as close to real food as possible, as quickly as possible. I've seen people really struggle for a long time because they keep stoking that. They're trying to recreate the addiction in a low carb way, and it's just, it's certainly better in some cases if you're really overweight like I was, or you have really severe diabetes. But I think eventually you want to get to real food. Like you want to find your way. You want to be able to bite into a pepper, a green pepper, and it tastes sweet to you, right? If you're not doing, you want to be able to enjoy black coffee, right? But that doesn't happen in one day.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that's the goal for most of us.
Once you lose the weight, do you have to stay on carnivore? Are you going to start gaining weight if you go back to sort of a more balanced diet and introduce carbs again?
I think I think there's a bit of like a lag time, you know. Look, I cannot tell you enough. I think, if we applied, keto carnivore to our diabetes epidemic right now, we would bankrupt the pharmaceutical companies. We would bankrupt it. If every single patient was put on keto carnivore, there would be no diabetes metabolic syndrome epidemic. We'd be left where it was like maybe 5 decades ago, like just a fraction of the population. Obesity would be a fraction of the population. Um, so I think that when you lose the weight, your tolerance for carbs goes way up,
Mhm.
right? It's like my kids right now. Like I have a 13-year-old. He's going to smoke me for the first time this year in a race in a 5K that we're going to do. So my ego is really going to drop tomorrow. Um, but he's like rapidly growing. He is putting on muscle at an unbelievable rate. His cells are dividing at an insane rate compared to me. right? So he's going to run 5 miles tomorrow. His tolerance for carbohydrates is through the roof,
Right.
right? So I think if you lose the weight, your tolerance for carbohydrates goes up. Now, I think there's some special cases where you wouldn't want to do that. Like if you have really severe, diabetes or metabolic syndrome, if you were like me, where you have a tendency to gain weight, 300, 400 pounds, right? If you've had type 2 diabetes, if you have a mental health issue, seizures, migraines, like you're going to want to be strict. If you have an autoimmune condition, you're
Hmm.
going to want to be strict. You're going to want to get those ketones fairly high, and you're going to want to maintain your diet because it's like a medicine. It's either that or Ozempic. I mean, you
Right.
pick, right? So I think for me, I haven't deviated in 10 years, but my wife, like, she's like this petite little thing. She does low carb and carnivore for her migraines because she has really bad migraines. Like if she's low carb, she has one migraine a year. If she's eating carbs, she has 15 to 20 migraines a year, and they last for days.
Wow.
And meanwhile, by the way, how the AAN, the American Academy of Neurologists, doesn't talk about ketogenic diets for migraines, even though there's plenty of literature on that for migraine prevention. Um, but her, like, she doesn't have an appetite issue. She doesn't have any insulin resistance. Like she could take a bite of Reese's Pieces at Halloween, put the rest down, and then never have an issue, right? So I think you just got to know yourself. Me, I can't do it. I wish I could.
Do you have your patients measure their ketones when they're getting started?
Yeah, so we have like a really unique style of practice. I mean, it's I don't, it's really it's you'd love it. We are nationwide, right? And we have several studies now. We've published studies on diabetes reversal, metabolic syndrome reversal. We have studies on weight loss at 1 year, 43 pounds. We have studies on binge eating symptoms going down by 80%, food addiction symptoms down by 60%. We have studies on cholesterol, how to deal with high cholesterol on the keto diet without medications. We've put out a lot of research, and my team is awesome. We have, several clinicians, coaches, trainers, and it's just I have I'm lucky to be in a great group. Um, so when a patient starts with us, they could be in like, the tip of Maine all the way down to, Baja California and anywhere in between. And they get a body composition scale that connects directly to us. They get a blood pressure cuff, connects directly to us, a ketone meter, and we use in our patients with diabetes on multiple medications, we do use continuous glucose monitors, but with others, we may just use the ketone meter and the finger stick. And we track everything. We track the step counts. We connect to the Fitbits and the watches and the phones, and we connect all of these equipment. And we're screening, thousands of people across the nation in real time, basically. Um, and the practice is different. Like when you get started with our practice, you're meeting weekly with our coaches. It's really intense. It's not like I mean, it's sort of like how can I say this? Like it's nothing like I've seen before. Let's just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you're getting labs, including fasting insulin, all the labs that you'd want, right? Metabolic markers, several times every 2 months, in the first 6 months. And it is, there's a lot of, we have an app that we use to deploy like education sort of slowly over time. So we track everything. We do sleep studies completely remotely. It's not as good as having a good oral evaluation, obviously, but we can do remote sleep study evaluations. We do remote ambulatory blood pressure evaluations, optically. I mean, we do a lot of cool stuff. We're ordering coronary artery calcium scans nationwide. I mean, so our patients are like really handheld through how to lose weight, how to manage their medications. Our average patient comes off of two medications. So they come to us with like three or four medications. They're leaving us with one or two medications. The average patient that starts our program feels unwell about 20 days out of 30. And at the end of our program, they feel unwell 2 to 4 days out of 30. I
Wow.
mean, that's like and at this point, we used to be direct to consumer, but now we're focusing really on employers,
Hmm.
um, because we're showing the amount of medications we're stopping, we're saving them tons of money, and pharma is going to bankrupt corporate America if we don't do something about it. I mean, healthcare in general, not just pharma, the university hospitals that are charging 10 times the amount they should for mammograms and echocardiograms and visits, right? They're going to put every employer in this country out of business. And so our job when we come into these companies is to offer really holistic care. And we've demonstrated that we're able to save them $2,000 to $4,000 per employee,
Wow.
that's enrolled in our program. So we're focusing on the companies that are like 500 to 5,000 who get it, who get that healthcare needs to change.
I love that. How long on average do people stay in the program?
Yeah, so for well, it depends. If they're looking for primary care, virtual primary care, it could be for years. Our longest patient is a decade at this point, um, or nearly a decade. Most patients, who come for weight loss will stay for about 1.5 to 2.5 years.
Hmm.
We really, but what we're finding is in that 1.5 years, like we know everything about them. We are, we've met with them more than their primary care doctor, more than their specialists. We've gathered all of their records, all the diagnostics. We did the expansive lab panels. We've done the imaging tests. We're doing the whole body MRIs. You know, we're doing so people don't want to leave,
Right.
right? They're not in the intensive program, but they're staying with us for sort of virtual care because they see the value. So it used to be that, it was 1.5 years. The last time we checked, the average patient's 2.5 years. I think it's going to grow, and people are just they see the value in good care. Being able to text message and get a response in seconds, being able to just text message and get their doctor. I mean, our medicine's got to change. You know that, better than anybody. We can, I mean, you'll like to hear this. We can do even peak flow meters completely remotely. So we
Yeah.
have peak flow meters in our asthmatics homes, and it sends us the data,
Yeah. Yeah. That's great.
right? So just for the listener, peak flow meter is like how fast you can breathe out, basically, which is a marker we use for asthma. Because we're trying to keep patients with bad lung disease out of the hospital.
What about for kids? Do you help overweight children?
Oh my God, this is the next frontier for us. So we right now start at 15. I mean, you're so I don't know if you know this, Mary, but so like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, the American Academy of Pediatrics, I don't know if you saw this, but they put out the bariatric guidelines like, I don't know, 2.5 years ago, and they said every doctor should consider GLP-1s and bariatric surgery in our kids.
Bariatric surgery
Bariatric and
in
adolescents,
kids?
correct. Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That
So
is insane.
so well, let me pretend like they weren't insane and just like I understand what they're saying. They're saying if somebody's truly suffering, think about these things, which fine, if I'm being gracious to them, it's crazy, but it's like understandable. This is the part that made me flip out. 5 months later, okay, the AAP put out a position statement saying that to do a low carb, they recommend against children and adolescents doing low carb diets.
Wow.
And they recommend, if you're going to recommend it, that you need 23 lab tests and an imaging study to recommend a low carb diet in adolescents.
What, look at the
But
liver? What imaging study?
they wanted a DEXA scan. They're worried about bone density.
Really?
So yeah, so 23 lab tests, but bariatric surgery and medications, just please use those. So at first I was like, this is insane. And I wrote, with five other doctors, six other doctors, Dr. Matt Calkins, Dr. Laura Buchanan, who works in our clinic, and Dr. Eric Westman and Dr. Mark Cucuzella. We wrote a letter to the editor. Guess what happened? They wouldn't publish it,
Oh, of course. Right.
right? They wouldn't publish it. And we basically called them out. What they were doing was they were taking these kids with epilepsy, at a young age who had intractable epilepsy, and who are sometimes when there's no other medication, they're put on these very strict ketogenic diets. And they said, look, these kids have more problems than normal kids. That's why we recommend against low carb diets. It was the most straw man argument you'd ever see. So we walked them through all the literature, we dispelled all their myths, and they wouldn't publish it. So we published that letter in the Journal of Metabolic Health. And it was one of the most widely shared articles criticizing the AAP for recommending against lowering sugar, and giving a low carb diet in adolescence. And what we found out later was the author didn't disclose this. The primary author had received over $250,000 directly from pharma, and within the past 2 years, did not disclose it. And of
Wow.
course, it was the GLP-1 companies, right, which we won't name. But this is so I would love to develop a pediatric program. And when I say pediatric, I mean, I should call it a family program, because there's no way you're going to win a kid without winning the family.
Hmm.
So you're going to need mom, dad, and kids present at every visit. But we'd love a pediatrician to join our ranks. So if you're a pediatric doctor out there and you're listening to this, please call us, because I'm so tired of seeing, these 18-year-olds come to my office with fatty liver already. I just had a 22-year-old, who's already class 3 obesity, 200 pounds overweight, and has COPD, can't get dental care because of they won't put him, they're concerned about the anesthesia needed, because of his sleep apnea, concerns with that. I mean, we're truly dealing with an epidemic in our kids, and they deserve better. So yes, I'd love to help kids, but right now we do 15 and over only. Um, but we know, everybody, we need it. Our kids need it. Can I talk about kids for a sec? My kids, I have a 13-year-old. At his age, I was 100 pounds heavier than him.
Wow.
And I'm homozygous for all the obesity genes, like for two of the main ones. So he has the genes.
Right.
They're not homozygous, but they're still dominant. So he has the same genes, and he's 100 pounds less at the same age. It's the food,
Right.
right? The food is addictive. You got to get it out of the home. My kids they do eat some fruit, but they mainly eat meat, fish, eggs, Greek yogurt. The kid snacks on sardines. I mean, he's a beast, and he's 13, and he's running like 5-10 miles. It's crazy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What about the people that say, well, you're going to raise your cholesterol, and talk about the cholesterol issue?
Yeah, so we have a study coming out for them, and this isn't published yet, and it's not peer reviewed, but it will be. So the AHA right now and the ACA the ACC, sorry, has a calculator that they want every doctor to do. And it's a 10-year risk calculator. And it involves cholesterol. And it looks at cholesterol, but it looks at a number of other things to say, here's your risk of cardiovascular disease. And the newest calculator, it's called the Prevent calculator. This is like grade 1, every doc should be doing it. So we went back and we audited 130 of our charts to say, okay, the last 130 patients, how did we do? Right? And we demonstrated that at 1 year, okay, we lowered their cardiovascular risk, and I'm not joking when I say this, 50%.
Wow.
Their risk for heart failure was down 60%. This is 10 and 30-year risk. So we're going to publish this data because I don't, you want to worry about cholesterol? Fine. We're doing what the guidelines say and we're crushing it.
Right.
Right. So this idea of cholesterol, the problem is that you have to understand, when you reverse metabolic syndrome, when you reverse obesity, as you get lean, okay, and as you keep your carbohydrates low, your cholesterol will go up. Okay, this is it's been shown in meta-analysis. This is our study, in current developments 3 years ago showed this. It's been widely cited now, over 100 citations. When you keep so it doesn't matter what you eat. You could have anorexia. The leaner you get, the higher your cholesterol will go. And I want the listener, to hear this again. You could eat nothing. As you get lean, your LDL will go up if you're doing fasting for Ramadan or whatever. And as you get lean, your cholesterol will go up. If you go on a blood sugar disposing drug, a medication that makes you lose sugar, okay, makes you lose it through the pee, your cholesterol will go up. Right? So if you lower your carbohydrate.
Why is that?
So because the cholesterol is mobilizing fat for fuel. So your body will then produce cholesterol to mobilize fat for fuel more efficiently. As your insulin level drops and your body shifts to fat metabolism, and this is particularly as you get very lean, right? As your fat becomes the primary fuel source. And as you lose fat, your body is like, oh crap, my reservoirs are going down, right? So it creates more cholesterol to mobilize the fat. So you could literally be eating nothing. It has nothing to do with saturated fat and your fiber and nothing. It's nothing. Okay. You could be anorexic and your cholesterol will go through the roof. So what we're seeing in low carb diets is if you're overweight or obese and you get to a normal weight, nothing will happen to your cholesterol. It'll be the same. If you get very lean, like swimsuit lean, kind of like, towards like a BMI under 27, right? Typically, your cholesterol will reliably go up if you're fasting or you do low carb. Now, the question is this going to affect your heart? And honestly, the answer is it depends. Right? It depends. If you're concerned about your heart, get a CAC. If you have a family history like me, my grandfather died in his 40s. I've had several, family members with heart disease and stents. I've had 3 CACs in 10 years. All were 0. And my cholesterol is somewhere above
tell everybody what that is.
Yeah, sure. So I have no calcified plaque in my heart. Right. So a CAC, sorry, thanks for slowing me down. A CAC is a CAT scan of your heart. It's glorified plumbing. Okay. If there's a lot of plaque developing in your heart for over 1 or 2 years, it will start to calcify and we'll be able to see that on a CAT scan. So it's just plumbing. It's truly just plumbing. You're looking at the pipes, the 3 pipes go into the heart, and you're seeing, is there any blockages in those pipes? And yeah, the average male at 50 will have some calcium. The average female at 55 will have some calcium. So I've been eating this way for 10 years and I've developed no calcium. And like I said, so meaning that 10 years of sky high cholesterol, right, has not affected me poorly. Well, why is that? My blood pressure's gone down, my blood sugar's gone down, my insulin resistance is gone, my inflammation is down, right? And I feel great and I sleep well, right? So even if that high LDL was a risk, there are so many positive things on the other side, it's basically inconsequential for most people. In some cases, if you have a strong familial component or you have existing, plaque with that coronary artery calcium, you may want to consider just modifying the diet slightly to address the cholesterol. But for the most part, most 99% of people don't even need to care.
Do,
And
do
if
you
you
ever,
need it, yeah,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, do you ever use statins?
Very rarely, very rarely. Um, Never to treat a number, never to treat a number. Actually, we have another study coming out, so this is, sort of pending. Um, but there's a phenomenon where what we're noticing is non-statins may be more effective, right, in people who are in a ketogenic state. So statins are probably not an ideal choice if you want to lower the cholesterol. Now, most people don't need to do that, right? You don't need to lower the cholesterol. If you have very low calcium and your risk is low, you just don't need to treat a number just because your primary doc is flipping out because the number's high. I mean, that's just silly, right? So high number should not mean treatment, right? And if you're going to a doc that's just saying your number's high, I'm concerned, here's a drug, you need to stop and run away. If a doc is going to use a drug on you, he better be able to explain why, what the benefits and what the risks are. And if he can't tell you, hey, your risk is 20% of having a heart attack, and that's about the only person in the next 10 years, and maybe I'll lower your risk by about 3 or 4% in the next 10 years with this drug. It's about the only case, and that's so rare,
All right.
right? That's so rare. So, well, the I mean, if you want to go to heart disease, like most people, this is where I say, if you're a listener out there and you got a high number on a ketogenic diet or carnivore diet, first and foremost, right, consider a calcium scan, right? Consider a calcium scan. Ask your doc, I want to see what's going on with my heart. Okay. Um, if your calcium score is low, you really can consider staying off drugs, right? Just make sure to be healthy. I mean, don't go smoking and doing cocaine and, inhaling cadmium and, don't sniff the heavy metals, right? Like stay away from the microplastics, but go live a healthy life. But if your calcium score is high, you may want to consider, and there's many agents to lower plaque. I mean, fish oil has been shown to lower plaque. Nattokinase has been shown to lower plaque. Vitamin K2 has been shown to lower plaque. Zetia, bempedoic acid, statins, and PCSK9 inhibitors have been shown to lower plaque. It's not colchicine, 1,000-year-old medication has been shown to lower plaque. I mean, you don't have to just, take a statin because your doc told you. And why wouldn't you want to? Because it inhibits mitochondria, particularly in older women. It causes insulin resistance and pushes you into diabetes. And many people just feel lousy. They
Mm-hmm.
really feel terrible on the medication. So, but on the flip side, it's the most studied.
Have you seen calcium scores get lower on the carnivore diet?
Okay, so I have a podcast I'm going to do with somebody who claims he's got a protocol out. He's very well known. I'm not going to name him. He claims his calcium score has been reversed. I asked him to come with his images so we can go through it together on air because I'm a guy, I want to see the data. Like I put out the data because I want people to, it's one thing to be loud and say stuff. It's another thing to put your money where your mouth is. So I'm a believer of put my money where my mouth is. So every single case of lowering calcium in my clinic has been an error in the AI, an error in the lung, in the heart not being in the field.
Hmm.
It's been an error. Um, so I will say that I have seen people halt their calcium completely for 5, 7, 8 years, meaning they had a bit of calcium and it never went up.
Mhm.
And just for the listener to understand, the average rate of progression is 20%. So if you have a bit of just like wrinkles and white hair, right? Like we just get more of them as time goes on, right? So calcium, the average rate of progression is 20% per year.
Wow, that's
So for
pretty.
somebody to have zero progression over 7 years, is huge. So we have about 10 or 15 patients in our clinic who have halted progression. And they all basically do the same similar things. Um, plus or minus fish oil, Vasipa, plus or minus nattokinase, kinase, plus or minus Zetia. They're all doing cardiovascular exercise regularly. They all lift and they all live stress-free lives. Many of them are on baby aspirin, depending on how high the score is. Um, some of them are on colchicine, but these are like the commonalities between all of them. Um,
Do
but I've never
you
seen it reverse.
do you see the thyroid becoming sluggish on carnivore?
My thyroid got better on carnivore.
It did. Okay.
So I've had lifelong hypothyroidism. I had a thyroglossal duct cyst at a young age. It was removed. I've had a TSH anywhere between 5 and 10, for the last decade plus. Um, and mine improved on it. I haven't, we've systematically looked at TSHs. Uh, we've looked at T4. I'd say maybe a quarter of our patients were checking T3 and reverse T3 and T3 uptake and stuff like that. But I don't think I've seen a consistent pattern. I mean, I think in general with weight loss, we see T3 go down,
Hmm.
with any weight loss. So I don't know how much of that is attributable to the ketogenic diet. Uh, I gotta be honest, I don't think it's a factor. I just don't. But I mean, I could be wrong. Um, I don't. I know it's been said. I know there's some. I'm curious what you think. You're closer to the thyroid than I am.
No, no. I mean, I have had one doctor tell me that, yeah, that was a side effect that the thyroid gets sluggish with the carnivore diet. But yeah, you see it all day, every day.
I
So I
haven't seen
trust
a
you.
TSH change. So and we're checking, every 3 months, right?
Hmm.
So it would either have to be years, but I have a ton of people who've been carnivore for years and that TSH isn't changed. With massive weight loss, it seems to go down. So that's like the one caveat. The T3 seems to go down.
And what about vitamin deficiencies on carnivore? Because people will say, well, you're not getting vitamin C and not getting enough calcium. What do you say to that?
I'm going to tell you first and foremost, I have I think the vitamin C and the calcium are very legitimate. I think the other one is folate. These are the three that would be on my radar. Um, but the average person coming to my clinic who's BMI 39 has a vitamin C deficiency, vitamin D deficiency, low folate. I mean, it's all there.
Mm-hmm.
And when you reverse the metabolic syndrome, those seem to just get better on their own, which I think what that means is when you're in an inflammatory state, your body's using these nutrients at a higher degree. The utilization's higher. So I've seen people without supplementation improve.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some patients that are long-term carnivores doing even like liver supplements with real severe folate deficiency, no overt symptoms, and vitamin C deficiency. I've never seen anybody like, have any like certainly scurvy, maybe if I'm looking closely, um some gum bleeding, but nothing. I've seen low levels. And when we
Mm-hmm.
see low levels and we tell patients about it, most opt to treat, right? So they'll pick up a supplement, or they'll bring back peppers, or um they'll consider something with folate, either liver, lightly cooked liver, or bringing back some green leafy vegetables. Those are the big ones. The calcium, I think, the calcium issue is really in, I guess, people who either don't eat bones. So like my kid eats sardines, right? There's bones in there, right? Like, so he's getting some of the calcium through that way. Um, and most carnivores do dairy,
Mm-hmm.
so in those people, I'm not too worried about calcium, but again, I haven't seen anybody with like you know, parathyroid issues or hypocalcemia. I just haven't seen it. I haven't seen DEXAs drastically worsen, right? So I think the urinary calcium that drives the fear,
Mm-hmm.
it's only seen for like a couple months, and then then I'm assuming it's back to normal.
Yeah. All right. One last question. Cost, because everybody seems to mention that as a factor that they can't afford to eat steaks every day. What are some tricks people can do to keep the cost down?
Yeah, well, I would just say Januvia costs $600 a month. Ozempic costs $500 a month. Actos costs $400 a month. Amlodipine costs, $150 a month. Hydrochlorothiazide, $100 a month. Pantoprazole is like $200 a month. I mean, the migraine meds my wife's on, like that she used to be on, those are hundreds of dollars a month, right? So, forget it, the co-pays, doctor visits, just those alone, right? Like, so if you can pick two of those, you just earned a crap ton of food, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So don't look at the cost. It's not a one for one. It's not, you can't say, well, what's my, and even the food costs. I mean, I'm going to tell you, we did a experiment, me and my health coaches, and we said, can we get by with less than $12 a day? Right? Can we get by, which is the SNAP benefit in New York, can we get by with less than $12 a day? $12 a day in New York buys you a pound of ground beef at McDonald's and a side salad, which is pretty damn good. A
Mm-hmm.
pretty damn good way to eat. I mean, you're getting really nourishing food.
Wait,
Okay.
a pound of ground beef at McDonald's? Is that what
At
you said?
McDonald's,
Or like
yes.
what do you mean?
Yeah,
Like a
four quarter
oh,
pounders,
four
$2
quarter
each,
pounders?
and a salad for $4. That's $12.
All right.
So $12, you get a pound of meat and a salad. Like who's gonna balk at that?
All right.
Right? I mean, so you can go to Wendy's, do the same thing, Burger King, do the same thing, right? So it's not expensive. You can do this even on a welfare check, on a SNAP benefit. I think it becomes hard if you want the food quality to be high,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you and I think that is the ideal, like regenerative farming, sort of free range, pasture raised, I mean, like real good food,
Mm-hmm.
right? The amino acid profile, the fat profiles are all better, So I think if you're in it for, if you're on a budget, I mean, like today, me and my wife, we bought, salmon for 4.50 a pound. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's not that we bought chicken for $1 a pound, right? I mean,
Cheap.
so for $10, that's 10 pounds of chicken.
All right.
right? I mean, I'm not saying that. I think beef right now is through the roof, the beef prices, but you can make this work, if you understand that you're going to save money elsewhere. You're
Yeah.
not going to be buying the soda, you're not going to be buying the chips, you're not going to be paying to go to the doctor's visit. You're not going to take 2 days off a month to go to the doctor. You're not, spending money on co-pays and, deductibles and all that. You're going to win.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can definitely do it cheap. Don't let money's not a factor. And honestly, like, are you going to care about the $2 more you spent a day, like when you're 6 feet under the grave? No, you're not going to care.
Right. Right.
So go eat healthy.
Yeah. It
Sorry, you
should
got
be
me
the
started,
highest.
Mary.
No, it should be your highest budget priority, right? Shelter, food. Yeah. Well, so where can people find you?
Yeah, look, first of all, for the listener, I hope this wasn't too much of rambling. I was able to give you like advice and your audience advice, just to make it make sense for them. You can do this, get help. We have a free app. It's the Toward Health app. Toward.health is our website. Our app is for free. We have, a free carnivore challenge 3 times a year. We have a free fasting challenge, live meetings. You go to live coaches who've been doing this for a decade plus. We have courses in our app on coronary artery calcium, on CGMs, on diabetes, on reversing fatty liver, on reversing, disease like we and diabetes. I mean, we have a full weight loss curriculum. I mean, if you're looking to lose weight, we have support groups right in our app. So we have, there's 15 different companies use our app for their employees. And we give it away basically for free. If you want to support us and get some extra stuff, I mean, it's pretty cheap. So that's where they can find me on the Toward Health app, on social at Dr. Tro. And our nationwide practice is Toward.health. We're a direct care practice. We're super proud of it. We have published studies, culture of putting the patient first. So I'm super proud about all that. So I'm really lucky to be part of an amazing team and work with the team that I have. So yeah, that's where people can find me.
Wow, wonderful. I mean, this has been awesome. I am going to eat a steak tomorrow before Thanksgiving so that I am not tempted. I may sneak some bacon in my purse in case. But yeah, great information, Dr. Tro. And it sounds like you have a really amazing practice. I'm going to start sending people your way. I didn't realize you were all over the country. So it's hope everybody will go. It's Torward Health, TOWARD, Torward Health, Dr. Tro. So thanks so much and happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Mary. Thank you.
Thanks,
You could have called me Tro. You called me Dr. Tro. You could have called me Tro.
Tro.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right.